quickly. Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming at you live from episode 50 of Life on the Rocks with your host, Connor LaRocque. Today's featured guest in the hot seat is my good friend, Mr. Troy Crowder. How are you doing today?
Pleasure.
It's an absolute pleasure to have Troy on the show this afternoon. For anybody in the city of Greater Sudbury who doesn't know Troy, actually, he's probably one of the only names in the city with a page on Wikipedia, but he is a former NHL hockey player, a versatile entrepreneur, and on top of all that, he is actually running for the Ontario PC Party locally here in the city of Greater Sudbury. So the first thing I think people are going to ask, I want to talk about your hockey career to get into a conversation. Let's talk about your career in the NHL. How did that get started?
Well, growing up in Lively or anywhere in Sudbury, I mean, hockey's part of your culture, right?
Absolutely.
The town of Walden, where I lived in, we have 10 outdoor rinks in our little town, so you're never more than a few blocks away from a rink. So growing up as a kid, my dad played hockey, played semi-pro hockey. He was invited to Philadelphia Flyers camp. Wasn't as much money back then. He had two young kids, so he decided to move back to Sudbury and get into the mining world, and that's kind of his career. And then, so as a kid, you look up to your dad, and hockey's a fun thing to do. And then, so my whole life since I've been 3 years old, I've been playing. So
you basically had the skates as soon as you
were
born.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that for a second. Like, talk about that moment you got drafted. Like, that must have been, for every hockey player or athlete in general, you making it into the big leagues. Talk about that.
Yeah, it was a pretty big transition. I mean, I played just A hockey in Walden, not AAA, just A, and we had a loop around Valley, East Garson, and everybody played in that loop. And I got drafted into the OHL and played 1 year, and then I got drafted in the NHL. So it happened very quickly from A hockey to NHL. And played 3 full years in junior hockey, and then got my chance to get called up to the American Hockey League at the end of the season. And then at the end of that season, I got called up to the NHL. So my very first game was Stanley Cup semifinals.
That's crazy. Oh my God. How many different teams did you play for in the NHL?
4.
You were 4 different teams?
Yeah, so broke in with New Jersey Devils, played the bulk of my career with them. Then I went to Detroit Red Wings. Had a major back injury, and I missed most of my time with them. I only got to play about 6 games at the start and end of the season. I had to sit out for almost 3 full years.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Did therapy, rehab, got back, went out to LA, played in LA, got to play with Gretzky and Curry and all those guys out in LA for a couple of years. It was a fabulous experience.
I can imagine.
And then up to Vancouver for a year, and then I went over to Europe and played for a few years.
Well, that's usually what always happens to people coming in the NHL, try out the Europe route. Like, what was your favorite team to play for out of all those? Like, which one did you enjoy the most? Playing against Gretzky, or?
Playing with Wayne and living in LA is pretty nice. So you come home from practice and you're staring at the beach and watching the Dolphins come in, and pro beach volleyball going on in the beach in front of you, skate and rollerblade all over, and so it was pretty sweet. I mean, obviously your first year when you break in the NHL, I had a young bunch of guys that were teammates. So New Jersey was fun from just it's your first experience and your first team. But LA's pretty hard to beat for sure.
I can only imagine. That's one of the places I'm definitely moving in the next few years. I wanted to ask you, so let's transition for a second. So after you finished your hockey career, you went into the entrepreneur road, right? Yeah. So you started a business. I want you to talk about your business here that you have. I know you have a number going on, but it's you're going to work with a number of different teams with a skate type program.
Yeah. So when I first moved home, it was kind of like, what am I going to do now? It's a big transition. Your whole life you played hockey, and then it's now what am I going to do? So I dabbled in a few things over the years. I learned how to build houses, renovate. That was kind of my first kind of project. I wanted to learn how to kind of build. And then I decided that we were going to use our hockey resort, our resort as a hockey camp. And so we got into that business for a few years. And from that process, I'd watch kids skate and I'd see the difficulties they'd have, whether or not, they're rolling in or rolling out, or they couldn't bend enough. And I had a few skate issues myself. So I kind of put the two of them hand in hand and realized, geez, if I extended the eyelets on this skate, he'd be able to bend a little bit more. If I moved the blade in here, he'd have better balance. And so basically took from the hockey camp all that, learning experience, and then I patented a couple products. And then I started fitting players and ended up fitting Aaron Ekblad in his last year junior, who then went #1 in the NHL and then Rookie of the Year. And from that, other players, and then I got hired by the Calgary Flames to do player development and worked with some of their young guys, and did some consulting work with the Leafs, and so that was kind of the business of the hockey world and the creative part of things. And then I decided that I miss Sudbury. I mean, I've lived all over the world. I lived in LA, New York, Vancouver, Europe, all over in England, and decided
No
you know,
place
this
like
is
home.
where I want to be, and
Absolutely.
I want my kids to be able to live here, and my grandkids, and there's a northern lifestyle that's pretty unique.
Absolutely.
You know, though I love the beaches in LA, whatever, home is always home, and there's just a certain unique thing about Sudbury.
No, absolutely. I think that's huge. I want you to talk about the transition from actually going from being a professional athlete to then all of a sudden the business side of hockey. How difficult of a transition was that?
Yeah, you know, it's a different school for sure. I mean, you know, as a player, it's no different than you're in the military.
Mm-hmm.
You're told where to go and instruct, and so you had to really break all down the, you know, the biomechanics of the sport itself, and then again, just try to reiterate that fun of hockey and kids camp, and so we had, you know, mountain biking and water trampolines, all these wonderful things for the kids to do. So yeah, it was a great experience.
I think it's probably one of the best things too, that you become a true master in your art. It's like you go from being a hockey player, then you teach these other people, and then you kind of find out the different flaws and things that work. You're like, oh, for me it became so easy.
Yeah.
And then you're teaching other kids. How difficult is it for you, you know, to, like, I know I talk to different leaders in the city of Grace all over the place. Like, how hard is it, you know, obviously one shoe doesn't fit all type of leadership.
Yeah.
Like, how are you versatile in that when you start, you know, you going out and trying to teach kids? Like, how do you work with them? You just kind of work off their strengths? Like, what are some techniques and things you utilize when you're working with kids and students?
Yeah, the number one thing I find, for one, is you yourself need to really understand the process itself, right? The breaking things down to the simplest form so that you can actually instruct to that. Because everyone's going to have a little bit of different technique. So no matter if a golfer in a different golf swing or a hockey player, or how close their hands are, but there's biomechanical things that are always the same.
Absolutely,
so you break those down, the timing of it all. So that's kind of part and parcel of it. And then my number one thing in anything in this world is why. You know, why are you doing this? You know, why are you practicing this way, or why are you shooting this way, or why are you forechecking? And if you can explain the why, people buy into it a lot easier.
Absolutely.
And that's basically my philosophy with most things, right?
No, absolutely. I like that. It's similar to Simon Sinek mentality. He's an author, and he always said, you know, you got to start with why. It's great you have the how, but the why is what gives you the passion, the purpose, the meaning behind what you do.
Yeah.
Before we cross over into the political side here, I want to talk about, you know, as a hockey player, you're transitioning to becoming obviously the Ontario PC candidate.
Yeah.
How different?
Going there, I think.
There we go.
Yeah.
My apologies on that. We had a minor technical live issue, but so talk about the transition from, you know, all of a sudden being known as a hockey player, a hockey player competing against Bob Probert, and then crossing over now into becoming a Ontario PC candidate. Like, what made you make that decision?
Well, it's a big thing for me is I like helping people. You know,
Absolutely.
that's you know, as a teammate, I was the enforcer taking care of my teammates, right? As a guy who ran a hockey camp, I wanted to help kids, and I wanted to, you know, show them the love of the sport and make them better. And so it's kind of been my nature, you know, when I worked for the Calgary Flames as director of player development, was to make these young kids ready to make the jump to the NHL. So this was just on a bigger scale, you know. Technically, I don't think you could find a more messed up jurisdiction than the province of Ontario right now, right? And so for a guy who likes to solve problems, who likes to help and likes to teach, I look at this as like, this is a great challenge for me. And being on a team your whole life, you know, you see the structure of who the captains, the assistant captains, the guys who lead by example, you know, the guys that are the fun guys, the morale boosters. Everybody's got a kind of a role. And for me, I look at it as I'm, you know, fairly well connected in this world. I've traveled to, you know, close to 1,000 cities in the world, and I've got friends all over, super intelligent people that, you know, have solutions to problems that they've figured out. And then I come home and I say, in the city of Sudbury, there's all these smart, intelligent people who've, you know, taken small mining manufacturing companies and made them worldwide, or, you know, they've moved on to do other great things around the world. But we've been kind of left in the dark up north, right? It's been this kind of forgotten wasteland, and the mining world is changing, and the north is changing, and people's views on the world are changing. And so I just think we're at this perfect precipice of change right now. And so for me, it was like, this is an unbelievable opportunity to go back to the town I love, you know, connect all these smart people I know, make a master plan, and then try to actually lay it out for, first of all, Sudbury, and then Northern Ontario, and then the province. And I think we can be a seed for the rest of the country, and, you know, for the world if people want to pay attention.
No, absolutely. I think some would argue too. So coming from an NHL background, they probably say it's more difficult of a transition. But in my eyes, I think it's actually brilliant because you already have, you know, you have a brand established. People know you, they like you. So now you can come in and showcase your other skills on top of it, right? Having a successful business on top. I want to talk about, so something, I come from a marketing and sales background. What's probably the most difficult part of your marketing, like to communicate your message that here, I'm coming to promote change. I used to be a hockey player. Like, how do you focus on your marketing piece? Like, what's the most difficult part?
Well, the most difficult part would definitely be mainstream media, right? There's a bias in media, right? So unless you're on that bias, you're kind of always fighting against the stream. So obviously the internet is a tool to be used. So we're slowly through Facebook and Twitter, we're kind of building up a bit of a rapport. It's something that I never really did up until now. In the hockey world, I was very much focused on that, and it was your self-contained unit. Now you're trying to get the message out to the masses. So that's part of it. And then I do a lot of door knocking, and I meet a lot of people, and I just explain to them what I see, and it's almost instantaneously the response comes back. It's people of Sudbury are proud of this city, but we want to be even more proud. We know we have more to offer, and they see the potential, and nobody's doing anything about it. And so these conversations just spur, and I just tell them, hey, tell your neighbor, this is what I'm in the same boat as you. This is what I want to see change. And so obviously, there's steps to the goal, right? So I've got to win this riding, and then our party would hopefully win the province, and then there's the city part of things, the municipality, right? So we have an election coming up in the fall, and ideally it'd be nice to have some councillors that see that vision of where this city could go as well. So step one, step two, and then start implementing it. But I've spent 30 years leaving the city, going to play hockey somewhere or working somewhere, traveling with the military, doing all kinds of things and seeing great ideas, and I come home and I'm like, man, nothing's changing here, right?
Yeah.
We've got a few extra stores here and a few other things, but what this city looked like 50 years ago to what it looks like now, the regreening, our lakes are clean, and the acid rain factor and all that. I mean, it's becoming this beautiful place.
Yeah.
And we have this wonderful, vibrant city that could be even bigger and better. You have Killarney, which is not far away, which is being rebuilt, and it's wonderful. Manitoulin Island has this, down-home country feel, no franchises. You can go anywhere north or west or east and hit lakes and rivers and streams and fish and go out camping. The world is, getting crazier and crazier.
So true.
And digitally, we're getting really, warp drive. And this is just, nature.
Absolutely.
It's at our backyards, our doorsteps, and I just think we can capitalize on that. And I think that the intelligence of the people that are in this city, we can start to innovate, we can start to expand what we already have and become world-class, world leaders in the mining world, which we pretty much are now, but that can expand. The technologies from one thing apply to so many other things.
So true.
Yeah.
There's a mass disruption, right, that comes through it. And I think one of the other things, too, it's that, change is very difficult in the start of it, but then all of a sudden we're going to sit back in 5 years once we've already, let's say you bring in a new store, you bring in a new idea, you put that forward, people, we backlash on it until the change actually happens, and you're like, okay, I can accept it, right? What's the most difficult part for you, becoming a politician? What happens? So you guys get in and you have to, what are you going to do with your businesses? Obviously, they're still going to run. Like, how are you going to transition? How are you going to make that transition?
Yeah, so basically, I'm just trying to sell off my patents for my skate stuff to kind of just let that go. My focus, I've showed people what works and how it goes. So that's kind of, that I'm letting that ride. I want to take my other knowledge and my other passions and
so innovating.
So innovating, so we graduate 9,000 teacher jobs a year for 2,000 jobs. So that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, right? So we have to change some stuff, either how we deal with the teachers and new graduates and have a mentorship program or a teacher's assistants or whatever it happens to be, or we have to say, okay, now instead of that, maybe we need 7,000 of these people should be getting into mental health work to help that part of the industry and our community that's suffering right now.
Absolutely.
So, in sports, I've dealt with the sports world, so sport technology, biomechanics, now we have, slow motion photography, infrared sensors, all these things you can actually trace and mark and see what actually works. So I just think with all the great athletes that have been in this city for so long that, we could actually have an unbelievable Northern Ontario sports academy hubs tied in with our universities and our colleges. And again, that technology applies, back into other industries. And so I just think that certain seeds that we plant here can expand into so many more things. And that's kind of the vision I have for the city.
I think that's honestly great, and I think you hit on a number of points, especially with the university creating more jobs. I've been a big promoter of the entrepreneurship role. I said, you can't find a job, create one. You know, and in that sense, I was in that environment. I went to school, I went to university, and I got to see the different things, the different mentality, and it comes to, you need people like yourselves and I that are going to go out and say, here, no one wants to start it, right? It comes to the point where there's the backlash, but then someone goes out and creates those different programs and things. I think, you know, we're obviously going to see that in the next few years with a sports vicinity, like you said, like a nice complex or something that's going to engage. I think the community, at this point, we're asleep. We need to be engaged, and that's what people want.
It's hard, too, because there's a bit of resistance for change. And so you have to have enough energy to push past that resistance, and then once you've broken through, then other people follow you, and it starts to roll through, right? So for me, I got lots of energy. You know, I've been fighting my whole life, and love the city. I'm passionate about what I think we can be, the potential that we have. So, you know, for me, it's just a matter of time. Eventually, we wear down the wall and just break through, right?
You're excited, exactly. How do you deal with the criticism that you're going to receive? Obviously, in the political sphere, it's a 50-50. It's not one of those things where everybody likes you. You go from where people really like you, and then where a lot of people, you know, are going to maybe not like you.
Yeah. I don't worry too much about it. For one thing, you're never going to make everybody happy, right?
So true.
And two is all of what I've learned in my life, and it's been pretty dramatic, actually. I've had a pretty unbelievable life to this point, with a lot of lows and a lot of highs and a lot of unbelievable experiences. And so you take all that and you say, okay, now how does this play out, and how can we use all that information and affect not just big business, but people who need some social assistance, people who need mental health assistance, you know, a path, a direction to help young entrepreneurs, you know, taking down some of the barriers that are slowing progress down. But I understand too that you don't also just want it to explode and get out of control. So, you know, all those things for me, it's I'm going to do my best job with my experience, and I'm also going to rely on very smart people I've met in my life, and the very smart people that are in this city to try to make great. There you go. Back at it. So I say like, you know, so Nashville, you know, what it's turned into the last 30 years, it's incredible, right? And you know, now it has more stagettes and stags than anywhere else in the world, right? It's become this mecca of places to go, and it's super fun. And you see it with the hockey world and the music industry. And Baltimore, Maryland was the same thing. It was a very, you know, run-down harbor town, and now it's got this beautiful waterfront. It's become a tourist mecca. And, you know, I've been to Dubai 5 times, you know, and I watched the progress there, and Abu Dhabi, and I've been all over Thailand, Taiwan, Bali, all over the world. And you see what smart planning and using your assets are, and then you kind of run with those assets. And you know, once that ball starts rolling, everybody seems to kind of get on board, right? So in the big scheme of things, yeah, people are gonna be frustrated. Some people don't want change. Some people, you know, don't want to have to put the effort in, or, you know, they feel like they're not getting enough of whatever you're putting out there. But, you know, in the big scheme of things, they say when you're on a plane, right? We're going down, put the gas mask on you first, and then take care of your kids.
Exactly.
So we got to get an economy, and we have to have a vision, and we have to have a direction, and that's my first focus. And once we get that rolling, then you can substitute, and you can supplement, and you can help out all the other programs that go along with it. But we've been on this kind of downward tracking with losing manufacturing jobs, losing mining jobs. You know, in the mining world in particular, you know, equipment and technology is taking over, so we have to now figure out what other things we can do to make that work. So I have meetings every day with super smart people that, you know, have ideas and they have solutions to some of these problems. We just need to put them all together in one big package, and kind of, instead of it being, this is the only thing we want to talk about, and this is the only, life is a web. We're all interconnected. Every business is interconnected. How people interact is interconnected. So you really got to look at a big picture and then try to put it together so that, you know, enough things are feeding each other, and then you have success from there.
It's so true, and it's even like, so I come from a marketing background, and when we're doing marketing, people want to go, I just want to market to everybody, and then all of a sudden you don't get the results you want. You have to penetrate certain thresholds and areas, and then all of a sudden. So the last question I want to ask you, so one of the most important things, so being that my network, I talk a lot about personal development in my own life. How important is personal development to you? Like that, how has that led to your success? Like, you know, trying to invest in different materials and information to better yourself, whether it's being a hockey player, a politician, like how has that bettered you in your life?
Well, it comes down to many things. Is you can learn from mentors, you can learn from experience, and you really learn from failure, right? And so in my life, to be a professional athlete, there's a lot of roadblocks, and there's failures, and every day you're judged, every shift you're judged, so you're forced to push yourself and get better. And so just from that kind of experience, I think your self-confidence of who you are is strengthened. And then when you start to then get out of that world into another world and you have success, then you realize, geez, I can do this and I can maybe do that. So for me, my life has kind of built my confidence, and if you stay true to who you are, and my values are always about a better place, helping other people. I get excitement from watching people be successful. And so, for a guy who did player development, one of my guys that makes it to the NHL, it's like, all right, like I helped that kid and I get satisfaction from it, right?
I understood. Yeah.
So, in the big scheme of things, it just comes down to you're going to make mistakes. If you keep making the same mistake over and over, you're not doing something.
Go talk to someone else.
Go talk to somebody else.
Yeah.
So that's the thing in life, is like you make mistakes, you learn, you gather, talk to smart people, build, keep working, and that's the journey of life that we're all on, right?
No, I think that's huge. Do you have any advice? So obviously, for millennials entering into this time of mass disruption, what's your best advice to them? So if they're going out into the economy and they think, oh, we can't find a job, like what is some great advice you can give them?
Well, there's a lot of things that are cyclical. Everybody was about fast food and process and quick and get there and whatever, and then that whole food movement's come back to what it was when our grandparents were around, right? So you just got to look at life. History repeats itself in certain ways, but also changing, at the same time. So find out what your passion is, what interests you, first of all, right? Because you're going to put way more effort into something if you like it.
So true.
And two is, don't be afraid to start low on the totem pole and work your way through. Because if you jump right to the top and think, hey, I'm going to run this company, I'm pretty sure you're going to lose your shirt. But if you figure it out from the bottom and you work your way up, and then you have a full understanding of then when you do get to the top, what your employees are thinking or feeling, or maybe I should make a 4-day work week instead of a 5, but we'll work an extra couple hours, or maybe I should give them these days off. They're going to appreciate that because they're going to work harder on my other days, or whatever it happens to be. I think it's the process of learning and growing. As a millennial, you see your parents and your grandparents, that have these successful lives. Took a lot of work, but they have nice houses and whatever, and you kind of want that right away. It doesn't usually happen that way. You got to work at it, right? And enjoy the process of working at it. Enjoy the people you meet, and you never know who you're going to talk to who has some knowledge or some passion about something that might spark you as well. So, don't be in a rush. Just enjoy the journey and enjoy what it is, and you'll get to where you need to get to.
I think you're absolutely right on the money, especially for anybody else watching out there. That's great. I want to ask you, where can we make a donation to your campaigns? For anyone else out there, if you're looking to make a donation, is there a website? Where do we find you online? So if people want to donate, they want to engage with you.
Yeah, so we have Troy Crowder PC is my email. I have Facebook, same thing, Troy Crowder PC on Facebook. You can get a hold of me there. Just Troy Crowder on Twitter. We have the Sudbury PC Riding Association. So you get into any of those, you'll be able to connect with us. We're opening up our office in Sudbury on Tuesday, over on LaSalle, right near the Red Lobster. It's the old Rustic Craft building. So grand opening there. So we're gathering up volunteers, people who want to donate, people want to hammer in signs for the election time. Some people come around knocking. I have quite a few Laurentian University students on my volunteer team, and they come around, they knock on doors, and they see the process, and I try to engage them into getting themselves interested in municipal politics. And so, like I said, for me, it's if you want to help out with your time, you want to help out with the donation. Change doesn't come easy. It takes money, it takes energy. I have the energy, but we're putting in money. We need volunteers. We need all those things to make it happen. And you can sit on your hands and complain all you want, but if you really want to be a part of a fun process and say, hey, I was the guy that actually knocked on a door, I put my $50 forward, and this is what Sudbury used to be, and now this is what Sudbury is going to be. And
absolutely.
So that's
contributing to the change.
Yeah.
I actually love that mentality. Troy, I always told students, I said, when they go on strike and things, they're complaining, I said, go do some volunteer work.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. It's the same with you. If you need help, guys, that's the person to reach out to.
Yeah,
You've honestly done a phenomenal job. Honestly, I'm excited to see it. It's awesome to see the transition. I'm excited to see what's going to happen in this race.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm going to tag Troy in it, guys, for anyone else that wants to find him online. Like he said, Troy Crowder PC online.